Your weekend? Super Bowl next weekend. We're laughing in my house. We're like setting a lot of people up for failure. It's so close to Valentine's Day. It feels like, do you love me and want to go somewhere special with me, or do you want to watch the football game? This has already come up in our house. I'm like, don't make me pick. I'm like, it's my second favorite guy playing in the game. And my kids are like, but we could go to SeaWorld. And I'm like, on the Super Bowl day? I'm like, no, wait, what? Why SeaWorld? Right. I know, of all places, they're very specific. They're like, well, we could go to SeaWorld that day. It won't be busy because everyone will be watching the game. And I'm like, yeah, I'd like to be watching the game too, but okay. Like, that's my day to eat way too much and drink things and watch the game. Anyway, that's coming up. One more week of football, then it's over. So sad. Yeah, it's usually this last weekend. Yeah, it's usually the first weekend of February, but they made the season 1 week longer. So now it's so close to Valentine's Day. I could see that being a problem for some. It's already a problem for me, but maybe extra flowers. I don't know. But anyway, random thought. We left off here. We kind of finished up our unit on gender, but I want to say first, like, I really enjoyed all of the thoughts last time. I went home and like was telling my partner all about everything. It was just a really amazing discussion. I thought it was fantastic. So thank you so much for everyone sharing and kind of chiming in on everything. And I have one little video just to kind of wrap this up and finish this that I want to play. I love the one that you sent me, by the way. I'm going to show you a different one, but thank you. And again, if you ever have a great example from this class, email it to me, please. I would love it. A couple of you have already done that. But what I want to show you, there was a cool video that came out. Gosh, it's maybe like 5 years ago now at this point, or a couple more. Ruby Rose did a video called Break Free. And it's her transitioning from being like very, very, very feminine to being very, very masculine in just a matter of moments in this video, like cutting her hair, removing makeup, like an extreme transition. And I think it's so powerful because we were talking about this last time. How much your gender identity tends to be a big part of who we are. And just imagine taking your identity and completely flipping it in this way. And what the consequences of that might be, or how comfortable you would be doing something like that. But I'll play it for you as kind of a last thought with this chapter, and then we'll move on. But this was something that was just in social media, and I think it was a really cool portrayal. Is pretty like unheard of. Not very many people would be comfortable with doing the transition of that extreme, right? Going from hyper feminine to like hyper masculine. But she defines herself as like gender fluid, right? So I can be more like masculine some days or more feminine some days. Like I can be both, I can be neither. Kind of all over that spectrum, but really interesting clip, right? And again, just be thinking in your mind, would you be willing to do something like that? Most of us know, right? Most people are very like set in their gender, whatever it might be, wherever you might fall on that spectrum. But there are an incredible number of varieties, and some people can be very fluid in that way. I think that's a cool example of that. So just something to leave you with. There's obviously a lot of movies too. I had this up. Like a whole range of movies portraying a variety of gender in the media, some better than others. Like really bad one would be Mrs. Doubtfire, really good one would be Transamerica, right? A whole range, and then there's some that are great for the holidays, right? And then just classic ones like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and Tu Wong Fu. There's a bunch of these, some happy, some sad, a whole variety. But this is definitely kind of an important topic for us, right? Talking about gender, different identities, varieties of gender, and then all the things we talked about that can form our gender identity. Okay, so before we move on and leave this behind, any last like thoughts or comments or anything? Yeah. Oh yeah, if you can always, you're always welcome to leave. You don't have to ask me. That's perfect. At least it was just water, right? I think of worse things to be spilled. Yeah. Anybody, anything else? Anything else before we leave it behind? Yeah.
I found it really like interesting how they like, I don't know, because I've seen her always with like the short hair.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even recognize her with like long hair.
As feminine, like, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't even know it was her in the beginning.
Yeah, most of the movies I've seen her in, she's very like masculine in them. And so, yeah, I didn't recognize her in the beginning of that either. Somebody had sent that to me. It was a really cool, I think just a really powerful portrayal. I can't even imagine doing something like that in the opposite direction. Like I just can't. All right, so where we're going next is we're going to move to female sexual anatomy. That's our next topic, chapter 5. But before I put those slides up and give you visuals that go with them, we're going to do a little group activity just to kick it off, just for fun. So what I want you to do is get into groups of like 4 or 5 people. Let's say like 4 minimum. You could do like 4 to 6, whatever's easy. Find a group around you, like 4, 5, 6 people. I'll give you just a minute to do that, and then I'll tell you what we're doing from there. You're nervous? I think it's a fun one. Paper, you're gonna draw.
Yeah. Like you carry the paper, so. Like that's different from not really.
All right, everybody. So, see, spends paper up here. You have to tell me if I was successful or not. So what I'm going to do in a moment here is you're going to send one person from your group up to grab a couple of things. You are going to need a giant piece of paper, right? And then I have a bunch of Sharpies. And then I have a little piece of paper for you that I want you to grab. Okay? As a group, if you have notes, if you have the slides, put them away, close them, phones, like flip them over, just don't put things up on it. But what I want you to do as a group, without us talking about it, if you haven't gone into female anatomy, I want you to draw and label the structures that are on this piece of paper. Okay, as a group. Now, I give you Sharpies. That you give this with confidence, but you're welcome to start with pencil. If you have somebody in your group who's more artistically inclined, by all means have them draw. You don't all have to draw, just say, but I want to let you know that most of the time people draw 2 pictures, one of more external anatomy and one of internal, but you can do this however you want. I also want to say if you don't know where a structure is, feel free to have fun and be creative. Funny and creative. I'll share with you after we're done. But I don't want to like take your fun and creativity away. So if you don't know where something is, feel free to do your best or at least have fun with it. One or the other. What I also want you to do is make sure you write all of your first and last names on here. You're going to be turning this into me for 10 points of credit as well. This is an activity. So when you're ready, send one person up, grab a piece of paper, big piece of paper, and then some markers. Yeah. It's and then sharing you the best right. Share those. I'm not please don't. Do you want me to turn the desk like your body does, or you guys are on right? I just realized I run into Excellent.
For now. And then we can always add some spice, you know, if you need to. Okay, so like, but it's like, I think we're going. Yeah, that's it. You want to be sort of possible. I can do John. Like. And then the majority of the outside, like. He's so the north. Yeah. Men the minor. This one. We did this, they give my moral. And then wait, isn't the way? Yeah. Oh. The perineum, this skin on the inside of the vagina. It sounds like you so because I watched this one show and it was surgery on like a trans woman. They use the perineum to like the inside. So like we make that feeling. So it's like inside, we can just draw like, just do this in the water. The store.
With my.
Yeah, like the like that. I know, like, yeah. That's probably a lot easier. Slave. Okay, so then the you slice. It's like, it's kind of like a bean. It's like. Yeah. There's nothing else that shit in that. So look at that. Oh my God. Then it comes to the society. I don't know why. Like, when. Oh, and then isn't this so yeah.
Here.
Here.
This part in between. Okay, let's go, guys. I used to be when I was okay. Oh, but I was. I would love that. That's AR. I know this house I bought, and I wanted every book on it. I got all the way up and all that stuff. Like I had you guys. And I was studying about last basic art. Wow. Oh, G instead of T. TH. Like this brown sticks. You know, maybe one. We might as well. We have to. So, I like the penny. Sorry, my sister. Yeah. Help. Yeah. No, for breakfast. Okay. And she's like. Like. It's. This word. Like, thank you for your color pencils. This makes it so much more like taste. Yeah, it's such a adorable. And it's so tiny, so like it's never in the back. Yes. Okay, so we'll make the it's like this. It's like my favorite shade. Actually, lavender is my favorite color, but this is my second. Like you guys need to know. So with the clit. Yeah, it's all right. Look at all that. Yeah. So. Yeah, it's personality. Yeah. Are we all set? Yeah. We all. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very colorful. So that honestly, yeah.
She's lost. Or she's the straight line high one. Well, they got smaller. Art star. I took a picture of it. Star wrapping. He's first and last name. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I got you. Very creative. All right, finish up. Just English, we're going. It's it's fine. What? Yeah. I like that. I find this sex like I'm actually like 7 years old. So I think that's starting on that. I thought that. All right.
I tried that. Thing is that. There we go. Thank you. All right. Here, we'll hang these up and leave them. I used to leave them up and then like after this class, but I got in big trouble. It's kind of. I had a history professor complain because I left them up and they're like, our students were so distracted. I'm like, yeah, but did they learn something? I thought it was fun and then I got in trouble. Then I put them in my window, my office downstairs, and I got in trouble for that. Like, how many times can I get in trouble for this class? I've also got in trouble for my search history related to this class. Information related to pornography, and the district called me and was like, what are you doing in your office? I'm like, I teach human sexuality here. It seemed like a few people, the Mons Veneris was one a lot of people. So the perennium, I heard a few groups talking about. I had a last semester, so I've seen the USS Mons Veneris. People have drawn that, or Veneris Targaryen. I had that last year. That was a good one. Or Count Mons Veneris. I've had a lot of like very creative, like spaceship related or like something Dracula related things with Veneris. I don't know. We'll talk about all these different structures, but just kind of as a way to start thinking about it. This is what we're going to spend the next class and a half talking about. Different structures of anatomy. And a lot of people, as I said, like we have internal structures, external structures. We have some happy double ovaries that are like. Thank you for for drawing. I know not everyone likes to draw, myself included. But we're going to talk about these different structures, and I'll leave those up for now. And I'll sadly take them down before we leave today, so I don't get in trouble. Though I am tenured now, like, what are they going to do? Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to find out, so I'll take them down. But we're going to talk about the different elements of anatomy. We'll talk about internal and external structures. We'll spend some time talking about menopause and menstruation, like different gynecological health concerns for women, and then secondary sex characteristics like the breast. So kind of looking at a few different elements. We'll start external and then we'll move to internal. You have to love some of these diagrams that the book gives you, right? Very like open to see everything here, right? So we're going to start with the external genitalia of most women. Now we're talking about traditionally typical like XX women here. There obviously can be a lot of variety. So when we talk about the external genitals, just so I don't have to yell, we can collectively refer to this as the vulva. Right? The vagina is actually an internal structure, which we'll get to when we get to the internal structures. But vulva refers to all of the external genitalia of women, right? So everything on the outside, right? Rather than being up on the inside. And it's really important to know the names of these different structures. Very few people use these names in real life. But if you were to go to the doctor because you were having pain or maybe something was wrong, it would be nice to be able to know the proper terms to explain that to a physician or to somebody else, even if you never use them in any other setting, right? So that's what we'll focus on here today. So again, vulva being everything external. I'm going to write a few things up here on the board, and then there's more in the book if you need like a formal definition. But so vulva would be all the external genitals, right? So all of these different external structures. And interesting, like lots of gynecologists have been interviewed about this, right? And said that no two vulvas look alike. There's an incredible amount of variety in the size and shape of the lips, so the labia, which we'll talk about, in the mons veneris, which is that fatty like area up top, right on over the pubic bone, which may or may not be covered in hair. A lot of you got that right, which is fantastic. But I have some images because I think it's important. Variety of different vulvas, right? And you can look forward to or dread the male counterpart. But lots and lots of different presentations, whether it's different sizes and lengths, different colors, hair, no hair, right? An incredible amount of variety. No two women are the same. And so it's a dangerous thing to Google, but I found some images for you of a variety, right? So back to this, right? So we have the vulva, the mons veneris. You can see it up at the top here, the mons veneris, or the mound of Venus is what that stands for. The mons veneris or mons pubis, mound of Venus, all the same names for the same area, is that kind of fatty tissue that covers the pubic bone, right? That may or may not be covered in hair that would develop during puberty. And so this area has the main function of like cushioning and protecting the pubic bone. It stands for mound of Venus. Right, so assuming, and our bodies are designed with the intent of reproduction in mind. So assuming that you're going to be engaging in intercourse for the purposes of reproduction, of having children, the mons veneris has that fatty cushioning there to protect the pubic bone from being bruised or damaged during any kind of intercourse. And hair, right, would be a personal preference, right, from one person to another. Moving inward, we have the labia. Right, the labia minora and the labia majora. These are often referred to as the lips of the vulva or the vagina. But vagina would be the improper term, but that's one that a lot of people use. Again, vulva being all of the external genitals. So the labia majora are the outer bigger lips, right, that you would see on like a traditional or typical female. With these, they, again, cushioning and protection, right? Almost like insulation of everything, right? Cushioning and protection is the main job here. A little bit different when we talk about the inner lips or the smaller lips, labia minora. They contain all of the blood vessels, nerve endings, and quite a few different receptors for sensation, right? A lot of nerve endings and blood vessels and sweat and oil glands within those labia minora. They play a role in arousal, right? And so I'm going to write that up here. Let's see. I'll write nerve endings, blood vessels, and then sweat and oil glands. So they play a part in the lubrication that can occur when a woman becomes aroused, right? And again, like cushioning and protecting, but these are the much smaller inner layer, right? And so moving kind of inward here. A few other structures that we can talk about here, the clitoris, the statue in Greece, what they called it in the documentary? One main purpose. Anyone know what that main purpose is? Pleasure, right? Yep. This is an area of really, really dense nerve endings, right? And so the only function of the clitoris is thought to be pleasure. Now, not everyone reaches orgasm from just stimulation of this part. Some people, it is more like penetration related in that G spot that we'll talk about later. But the clitoris plays a really big role in arousal and orgasm for most women, covered with the clitoral hood or the prepuce. Now, the male equivalent of this would be the head of the penis. It's the most sensitive part of female anatomy, just like the head of the penis is for men. But remember that we start out the same until those gonads are formed, and then we start specializing in different directions. So male and female anatomy is literally the same for the first like 10, 11 weeks in like utero development. Other things we can add up here, the urethra. Right, this is the opening, the urethral opening. This is the spot in which urine would pass from the bladder. So different openings, right? We have a vaginal opening and a urethral opening, right? Different spots that one is passing urine. The other is a spot where a baby could come out of, where intercourse could happen. So different openings. The introitus, right, is that opening to the vagina, right, at the very base or at the bottom. The hymen. I was going to write on the other side, but your beautiful pictures are over there. What a shame. Right. The hymen is something that covers the vaginal opening. It's a very popular like slang term for the hymen. Anyone know what it is? Cherry, right? Like popping somebody's cherry traditionally means that you have like ruptured this small flap of tissue that covers the vaginal opening. Now, really interesting part of female anatomy. This used to play a very like significant historical purpose. What they would do in the past, and this is completely flawed, but they would do it anyway, is in order to check if someone was a virgin, right, what they would do is they would put them into stirrups and they would look to see if the hymen was still intact. If they didn't have that flap of skin, the hymen still intact, they would assume that this person was no longer virtuous or no longer a virgin. And there could be very harsh consequences for that for women, like back hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Now, this can rupture on its own for a lot of different reasons, right? Just activity, the use of like a tampon, inserting a finger, or it could be through sex, it could be through a trauma. There's a lot of different reasons that this could not be present anymore. But historically, they used to use this as a reference if someone was still a virgin or not. Very, very flawed, led to a lot of scandals, right? And again, this can happen for a lot of reasons. This could be ruptured. And oftentimes when people do have intercourse for the first time, they might bleed a little bit because this flap of skin becomes ruptured if it hadn't been already. I'll go back here and then I'll come up to you. Yeah.
What century this was, but during the time of talking about, they would check.
Yeah.
Or like they would kind of women kind of like shared these tips and tricks to fake virginity.
Sure.
And one of them was they get a little bit of goat's blood and they spill it on the sheets when their like new husband wasn't looking, to make them think
that was the first time. Interesting, right? Yeah, the little trips and or tips and tricks for portraying virginity. I like it. Yeah.
So, even And if they hadn't had sex, how could your hymen still be intact and like menstruating at this? Like, how does that work?
Yeah,
It
right.
doesn't make much sense.
What was that?
Still a little.
Yeah, right. So it doesn't cover it entirely. It's just a very thin flap of skin, and it oftentimes ruptures for people long before they have intercourse, right? I mean, it literally can just be from physical activity, or nothing.
I
Yeah.
mean, sleep didn't existed until like the last 5 years, because I'm pretty sure I did that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I remember I was swinging around a baseball bat
Mhm.
and I hit it and hit myself in between the legs with it.
Yeah.
And next thing I knew, I was like, oh my God. And I was bleeding.
Yeah.
And I was like, Mom,
Yeah.
I'm dying.
And oftentimes like childhood accidents like that can very easily cause that to rupture. It's really minimal, and it doesn't tend to cause a lot of bleeding, just like spotting. But but it really did have that historical significance, which is so inaccurate. Like, but they did it anyway. Yeah. 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 What was that? It can. Very rarely do people have issues with it, but Kinsey that we talked about, his wife had what's called a restricted hymen. And so what kept happening is it kept forming like scar tissue, and it would make intercourse really, really difficult for them. That's pretty rare. Usually it just kind of is gone, right? After that, like that skin is gone, and the rest of it just kind of fixes itself and it's gone, and it's not an issue. But it can become a medical issue. It's not very common. One last thing up here. Skin right here between the end of the vulva and the anus, right? So it's this very thin, very sensitive skin. If you ever heard of something like an episiotomy or a woman ripping during childbirth, this is what would rip, right? Not to make you think of that, but it is something that can happen. As a baby exits the vaginal canal, baby's head is much larger than like the vaginal canal is traditionally. Now it stretches, it's a muscular canal, but it can cause this area to rip sometimes. And that's called an episiotomy. And that's that thin skin there. It's very sensitive. I'm just going to write like it's a smooth.
Adding that to my reasons not to have children.
Smooth stretch of skin. It doesn't happen as much anymore, right? Traditionally, people will do stretches or even manually massage that area to kind of loosen it. Doctors also will look at the size of a baby, and if it's a possible like issue, they might consider a C-section or other methods. So it's not as common as it used to be, but it definitely can happen. It makes recovery all the longer. All right. So female anatomy internal structures is what we'll talk about next, but I want to give you a moment, and I'd like to do so with your groups that you were in before, I want you to do one more thing together and have somebody write it down, because I'm hoping you'll share. But I want you to make a list for as many slang terms for vagina as you can think of, or lower female anatomy, say lower female anatomy. So you're welcome to look it up online or just exhaust your mental list of resources, but have somebody write it down so you can share as many slang terms for female anatomy, lower female anatomy as you can.
Sure.
Hey, what? Yeah.
Oh, the change.
That was weird.
Look it up.
Yeah. The spelling of it. And that means like, yeah, beans. I'm like, no, it was. Yeah, like the. Yeah, yeah.
Downstairs.
Oh, that's. My God. I haven't. No. No. Yeah. Stop. That one's. I've never heard that one. My grandma calls me every day.
So just like another minute or so, and then we'll talk about. We'll get to slang for period eventually, so hold on to that.
Contacting you. Also conversing with others.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's on the 15th. Yeah, so I'll probably write that up on the board and talk about it on. And on that day, we won't, you don't actually come. I'll talk about it. All right. Have you thoughts in most of us use slang rather than use technical terms. Very rarely do people use technical terms for anatomy when they're talking to other people, except maybe a doctor. But slang terms are often frightening and irritating. Anybody want to read their list? Anyone willing? Yeah, I love it. Go for it. You have a lot of confidence today. Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
So have G to JJ. I JJ. I put private parts. I feel like sure, and then we'll put cookie, badge, lady parts, kitty down there. We have a couple other ones. I just don't know if it's appropriate.
Oh, you can say this. I mean, I'll find it.
Penis fly trap.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's like,
You're like, we can't forget that. All right. Go for it. I want to hear a long list.
Okay.
That makes me happy.
We have, let's see.
Wait, you want to hear these, right? I know you want to hear these. Yeah.
Okay, we have Pussy, Titty, Cooter, Coochie, Punani, Fanny, Vag, Bits, Vajayjay, Vagine, Bean. Downstairs, we also put penis flytrap, flowers, and then my favorite Arvin's roast beef sandwich.
That's so wrong. So wrong, right?
Pussy, panani, plant, lips, cherry, laser, concha, snatch, stock with the beef, crotch, bits, hoo-ha, cat, titty, lady bits, and camel stuff.
Love it.
Kill time.
All
No.
yeah. So my partner and two other like husbands were in and which is so stereotyped already. Father. Really don't like so many shed. Yes, but my friend he laughing at 20 minutes and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I mispronounced it. She ordered the vajayjay legs. Close to that, I don't know much about it. Did you want to add anything? Go for it, even if you know it.
Apple, taco, roast beef, spaghetti, what? Bag, cooler, and toy.
Flower. So I can buy myself flowers, right? Oh, that's if I had this ring. Was there?
Leaves, flower, front butt, crotch, and beavers. Beaver.
Hold on to your list. We definitely will have a few more opportunities to do this. Again, I think it's kind of entertaining for one. And for two, those are the terms that most people tend to use instead of this stuff. So now you'll hopefully have both. But let's talk about the internal structures and then we'll move forward from there. So internal structures of female anatomy, a lot of you drew some version of this picture, right? Really nicely done. A lot of you got this part perfectly. So some of the internal structures, we have the vagina, cervix, uterus, fallopian tubes, and ovaries, right? So these are the main internal structures. The vagina is a muscular canal. It contains a lot of nerve endings. It's a very strong muscle. And interestingly, as a side note, it is only 4 inches long. So with all of the stereotypes that we have about male penis size, the vagina naturally on its own is 4 inches. Now it obviously can expand quite a bit to accommodate for a baby coming out or something else coming in, right? It can, but it is naturally on its own about 4 inches long, which is just, I think, an interesting thing to think about given all the stereotypes and size expectations that we have. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Right.
Is that like is that just like the base before around?
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Like a natural baseline is about 4 inches, a little bit of variety from woman to woman, but roughly 4 inches. inches. And then when somebody becomes aroused, it does actually like, it can thin, it can stretch, it can expand. It becomes very like lubricated from all of the nerve endings and blood vessels and everything that are in it. So yeah, interesting, right? Yeah.
So it's kind of not supported. So like purpose.
Well, say that. You could definitely experience trauma to the vaginal canal, right? So if something is like too large, right? For example, like there are men who have a penis size of 13 plus inches. It's very uncommon, but it can happen. We'll watch part of like a little documentary and the man in it, I believe, is like 12 and a half inches, like not erect, right? So that is something that can happen. You're like, no, thank you. Male size, right? Remember the average size is between 5 to 6 inches, which is very directly correlated to the average size of the vagina. That is very, very like strongly connected to each other. So yes, you can experience trauma like from something that doesn't belong or something that was done way too forcibly or something that's too large. But the typical like size of something that you would be inserting, like the vagina will like stretch and accommodate most of the time. Yeah.
So I heard this thing a while ago, not 100% sure if it was true or not.
Sure.
But I was wondering if it's possible for like the vaginal canal to kind of like, I don't know, accommodate for a long-term partner, like it understands like the size that it has to be.
You know, like,
Oh, like over time, you're saying? Yeah, I mean, it could definitely get used to like if you're like very commonly inserting something of the same size, right? Then I think what happens over time is it can definitely stretch, right? And oftentimes when people give birth, right, for example, childbirth, then they often have to perform exercises to help it like constrict back because it gets stretched so badly during childbirth, right? But it will naturally readjust on its own and maybe exercises to help with that. So, I mean, I don't know if there's necessarily a way, I mean, I'm sure you could measure it, but I would think, you know, over time. Yeah. I mean, there definitely could be used to something of like a similar size, but you know, like again, it tends to like expand or like stretch and then return back to its default after.
Yeah.
Most of the time. The cervix, right? The cervix is the end of the uterus. Plays a really big role in pregnancy and childbirth. We'll talk about that more in a later unit, but when a woman goes into labor, it's her cervix that starts to dilate and open up. When it opens up enough, that's what causes someone's water to break or their bag of waters. So basically this area is closed or plugged, right? In order to create like a very like safe environment for that baby in the uterus. And then when it starts to open and expand, the water breaks, making way for that baby to come out. Yeah, all right. I'm like a strong like plug of mucus. Yeah. All right. And for some that can break early, right? And we'll talk about that more when we get to the unit on pregnancy. A few more, the uterus plays a huge role in fetal development and orgasm. Right, so the uterus, the kind of pear-shaped area is where a baby would grow and develop over the course of pregnancy. Also tends to play a big role in orgasms. It will contract whenever a woman experiences an orgasm. But main role by far, right, fetal development. This is where implantation would take place to have somebody become pregnant. The fallopian tubes is where fertilization takes place. And then like egg transportation. Right, and the ovaries, the last part would be where the eggs are produced. So they produce eggs or ova. Right, so every month, right, different hormonal processes will occur, which we'll talk about, which cause an egg to be matured, and then it's released from the ovary, and it's going to travel down the fallopian tube. And in the fallopian tube, that's traditionally where sperm and egg would meet, and fertilization would take place. And then it would implant into the uterine wall. And at that point, a woman is pregnant. And then there's all sorts of changes that happen from there. So these are like the main internal structures of female anatomy, all working together, a lot of hormonal processes involved here. Any other questions or thoughts or anything here before we keep going? to everybody's favorite topic in the world of menstruation, right? Oops, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. Menstruation. So again, a lot of hormonal processes for women. Men undergo hormonal changes as well. They actually have a monthly cycle that they undergo, but it's much less drastic, and obviously they don't menstruate. But we'll talk a little bit about menstruation. I want to give you just like 2 minutes because there are way less terms for this. But any slang terms you can come up with for menstruation, you go ahead and write those down with your group. Like period would be one. There are a few others. See what you can come up with. I'm just going to give you like 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, sure. But then, that's yeah. No, that's a question mark. Really serious. So cotton toning, right? Yeah, like a salad, like it's shaped like a salad. That's fascinating.
So just like
No, I don't. Yes.
all right, have we exhausted our menstruation slang? Anyone want to share? Share your this may be less daunting.
That would be a problem.
8 days, red sun, menstruating, flow, crimson tide, red wedding, fairy, code red, death, and living.
Nice. Nice Game of Thrones, right? Anybody else? Anyone have anything else? Those are really good lists. Anything to add? Yeah.
Next one I saw was when she said that French called Japanese flag.
Okay. That's funny. I like it. And people tend to have their own like nicknames for it, right? Like that they come up with. Yeah.
I have had someone call it a question mark.
Okay.
It's like period.
Okay. Nice. We're going with punctuations, right? I like it. Right. Lots of slang terms for this too. This doesn't tend to be people's favorite topic to cover, but it is a very like prominent thing that occurs for a lot of women for a lot of years, right? This is something that will really dominate a woman's life for many, many years of time. And menstruation, right, the technical name for this, it's the discharge of the built up uterine lining that takes place if conception has not occurred. And it's actually based on the lunar cycle. The lunar cycle, which is 29.5 days. That's where the term comes from. So menses means month and mene means moon, right? So it's related to the lunar cycle. The average menstrual cycle is 28 days, right? And so if a woman had a normal, quote, we'll say normal menstrual cycle, that's 28 days long, but it's related to that lunar cycle of 29.5 days. Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of a well-known thing that birth control really messes with that. But do you have any knowledge on like even after it, does it still continue to mess with the menstruation?
It depends for some women, and we talked about this before, birth control pills can actually make people very regular and have them have a 28-day cycle for the first time in their life. And for others, it can cause them to have random menstrual cycles, right? To randomly like bleed more times than often, to spot throughout the whole month. It's kind of all over the place. And it can also depend on the type of birth control pill that they take, whether it has hormones or not, whereas like progesterone only versus others. So for some, it's really regulating, and for others, it can be kind of dysregulating. So I wish there was an easier answer, but it's kind of all over the board, right? So if we assume a 28-day cycle, and very few women are like textbook 28 days, right? It's very common that women will be like within a day or two, or maybe have very irregular cycles, right? That's not uncommon either. There's lots of apps that you can download to like track these things that will predict when you're about to have your cycle based on like your history. But traditionally it's roughly 28 days. And menarche and menopause, or menarche, I've heard it both ways. Menarche is the first menstrual cycle, right? So when you have your first period, and menopause is when your menstrual cycles stop. So on average, the typical like average for getting your menstrual cycle is right around 11 and a half, right? So that is like the average age. I will tell you this, and my daughter would be mortified if I shared it, but I'm going to share it anyway. My daughter got her period at 9. I was completely unprepared for that. Like, just as a side note, like, she's always been bigger and taller. We were camping and she's like, I'm bleeding, something's really wrong. And she was crying and scared. We hadn't talked to her about it yet. She was 9, started her menstrual cycle. Like, I'll never forget it. Every time we go back there, I'm gonna be like, this is... My partner was like, go to the store. I'm like driving to the store like an idiot, like all like stressed out. Buying stuff for my 9-year-old, right? That's really early, right? It's 11 and a half is on average. It gets earlier and earlier and earlier, right? So we're seeing it used to be closer to like 12 or 13. Now it's closer to like 11 and a half. But it can be even earlier than that, right? Obviously as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Did like a lot of sports and was very like healthy and stuff, and
Later.
it was like almost like 16 and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes being really, really physically active and having a lot of muscle mass and not a lot of fat can actually delay a menstrual cycle, or have people stop. Like if you're working out excessively and developing a lot of muscle mass, you could actually end up missing menstrual cycles for that reason. A lot of thought related to like the additives in our food and the hormonal additives that are there. Obesity plays a role in it as well. But like, it's a lot of like food and diet related things, along with like weight being a high correlate. Like my daughter has always been bigger, right? And so like, it didn't surprise us in a way that it was early. I mean, it surprised me that it was that early, but we had always expected it to be a little earlier. So yeah, there's a lot of really interesting correlates with diet and food additives as well that are thought to play a role in it being earlier and earlier. And then menopause, the stopping of menstrual cycles, tends to be somewhere between 45 and 55, a little more variety there, right? So we're talking like a good like 30 plus years that most women have menstrual cycles. And the vast majority of women, while they might not enjoy the menstrual cycle, oftentimes see it as a sign of health and that things are functioning the way they should be, right? Missing a menstrual cycle oftentimes causes a lot of anxiety for people, whether that's related to health or I might be pregnant. So for most, this is considered like a healthy thing when your body is doing this. Now, not to say that you would be happy about it, but it is often viewed in this occurs in 4 different phases, and there's a lot of different things going on in each phase. So we have the menstrual phase, the follicular phase, the ovulation phase, and the luteal phase. And so I wrote this up here, like if we assume 1 to 28, right? So we're going to start with the first phase, which would be right in here, right? This is when somebody is having their menstrual cycle. So the menstrual phase, right? So this would be the first one. And this is when people are typically like actively bleeding. That lining of the uterus, which we call the endometrium, is being released from the body, right? So if somebody doesn't get pregnant, if there's not a fertilized egg that's entered into the system, during those first, like roughly like up to 6 days or so, on average, like 5 to 6 days, people are having their actual menstrual cycle. They're bleeding, that lining of the uterus is being released, right? So again, traditionally, like 5 or 6 days on average, For some people, it's much less. Some people, it can be longer, right? And it might vary by month as well. The next phase, right, we have right here is the follicular phase. We're already there. In the follicular phase, which we have right in this range, phase 2, follicle is another name for like the egg that's being developed, right? So in this phase, what we have is the egg is maturing for release. So a lot of different hormones being released at this time, triggering the ovary to mature that egg to be released. It lasts about like 6 to 13 days, sometimes called the proliferative phase because that egg is proliferating, it's growing, it's maturing, being ready to be released from the body. Then right around here, we get the ovulation phase. Ovulation is when that egg is released from the ovary and starts traveling down the fallopian tube. Now, if you were to have any kind of unprotected intercourse from day 1 up to the point where you ovulate, your chances of getting pregnant are next to 0, right? Because there's no egg to fertilize. So sometimes people use this to help them avoid getting pregnant, or maybe even to try and get pregnant. So any kind of like intercourse in here, right, your chances of getting pregnant are almost 0 because there's nothing to fertilize. Versus if you were to have intercourse right around here, we sometimes call this the fertile window. Within a day or 2 after that egg has been released, that's when you are most likely to get pregnant because there's an egg traveling down the fallopian tube. If sperm is introduced into the body, pregnancy could occur, or like fertilization could occur. So if somebody's trying to get pregnant, they might be watching for ovulation, right? So that they could have sex right afterward. Or if you're trying to not get pregnant, you would want to avoid that. So maybe right after you finish your menstrual cycle, in this range right here, you're very, very safe, right, from getting pregnant. It's a natural form of birth control that a lot of people will use in like heterosexual relationships. So in ovulation, there's a huge surge of a hormone called LH that we talked about, luteinizing hormone. And you can test for this, right? So people can test for ovulation by urinating on a stick like you would for a pregnancy test. And if there's a surge of that hormone LH, then it indicates you're ovulating. And then people trying to get pregnant would then want to engage in like having sex or introducing sperm through some method. Or if you're trying to avoid pregnancy, you would avoid it at that point. And then in the last phase here, right, all this range in here, we call this the luteal phase. And the reason it's called that is there's a body called the corpus luteum that develops. What this body does is it prevents anything else from happening, any other eggs from being released. And it causes the endometrium, that lining of the uterus, to build in preparation for a fertilized egg. So your body is basically designed to help you get pregnant. A female's body is like this, the whole process is to get pregnant, right? So you menstruate and then the egg starts to mature, it's released. And so while we're in this phase here, that lining of the uterus is building in preparation for the egg to come. If it never comes, and you have a menstrual cycle and repeat and repeat and repeat over and over and over again for that like 30 years or so. So there's a lot of hormones going on through this, right, that are triggering each one of these phases. I have a little video that I'll play for you next time as like a quick review, and we can talk about it a little more since we're pretty much out of time. But a lot of things going on here, right? So we'll pick up with this and keep talking a little bit more about it. I also, next time we'll talk a little bit about your first exam, which is coming up in about a week. We'll talk about that more on Wednesday. If you want to take a picture or admire your beautiful drawing before you leave, feel free. Otherwise, I'll see you all on Wednesday. Stop.